when I was auditioning, which was, it was a real bitch fest and a real competition, and the camaraderie didn't happen until you got in the show. That exists in the audition room and in the the training area and the classes that these kids do. But the real battle that this generation have is with themselves. It's the sabotaging voice in their heads. So I've been working a bit on that and really want to continue that work, because I think it's really vital for these kids to have that as part of their training, and not just the pushing to be the best singer, dancer, actor, and present yourself in a certain way. There's got to be some self-care in there as well.
This is Crisis Cast 2020 with me, Toby Goodman, a podcast where I get timely wisdom from experts in life and business. These guests will answer my 5 questions, sharing wisdom and insights to help you and me get through this global shitstorm. Today on Crisis Cast 2020, I'm joined by Gary Lloyd. I worked with Gary at the start of my career as a musician 20 years ago, and since leaving stage performance behind, Gary has made a huge name for himself as a choreographer and director. Alongside his 11-year tenure on hit West End and global show Thriller Live, a show based on the work of Michael Jackson, Gary has worked with countless superstars in theatre, music, TV and film. He's even written a book and, of course, won a clutch of awards along the way. He is perhaps the busiest man in show business. So it was great to speak with him about how he's been getting through the last few months, not just as a professional in the creative industry himself, but also how he's been helping others in the industry and his experience of being a parent through the pandemic. Before we start the show, I have something for you if you identify as pod curious. It's perfect for you if you're an expert, consultant or business owner. Maybe you're wondering if podcasting is worth the effort, especially now, or perhaps you've tried podcasting in the past but have been disappointed with the results. In this free guide, Podstar, I'll share the exact 7 steps we use to help publish over 2,000 podcasts each month. To get instant access, go to podcastnetworksolutions.com. Gary Lloyd, welcome to Crisis Cast 2020. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, Toby. Thanks for having me.
Now, I just looked at the last time we saw each other, and I don't know if you know this, but it was February the 14th. We're romantic people. And that was just after we were reunited over Christmas after the best part of 20 years. So it's kind of the world's completely changed since then. And you're a father. You're a man who's built a significant career as a director, a choreographer at the heart of the entertainment business. And when we spoke in Feb, your book was not long out. You were preparing for a book tour. Thriller Live was running in the West End. You had various other exciting show projects in the works. And then March happened. So tell me about that. Tell me about your experience on a local level. That's a quite a quick rundown of where we were, and
yeah, quite a big summary of the explosion that happened to all of us. I didn't realise it was Valentine's Day, Toby.
Nor did I.
Quite poignant. And it was wonderful working with you again over Christmas. That was a beautiful surprise, walking in and seeing you. And that whole Panto season was just glorious with everybody that was involved in that show in High Wycombe. And like everything last year, was really, really positive. I'd spent 2 years working on this book, which was 10 years in the making. In terms of the content and what the book is about. Obviously, it's 10 years of Thriller Live, and working on that in the West End and on tour, and just sort of pouring my heart into a memoir, to celebrate something that not many people can say they've done, having a 10-year or 11-year tenure in the West End and a global hit show. So, we're always very, very grateful for every day extra we have on Thriller. So it was really to just get all of that celebration down in print and have a book on the shelf just to mark that huge achievement. So yeah, I was about to go out on a book tour. I was tying that in with a bit of coaching, and sort of spreading the love with the story of the show, along with teaching a bit of the show to drama school and dance school students, which I'm doing a bit of that online. But the big drop that happened shortly after that book tour was scheduled was just massive. Thriller was about to close in the theatre that we've been in for 11 years and hopefully move to another theatre. This last cast of Thriller at the Lyric Theatre were already very emotional. They were seeing the end of an era in this building that is just steeped in Thriller history, and we only had a couple of weeks left before they finished. So, just mentally, and then the crew and the band and everyone, it was huge for that, the show and all of those relationships and all of that history to have the plug pulled so abruptly. The announcement happened on a Monday. That the West End was going to close down, and Monday was our day off. So these guys had done their final show without even realising it. So it was a very, very sad week for everybody.
When was the last time you saw it?
Not long before. I'd gone in not long before. Sadly, I'd gone in kind of guns blazing and put them all through their paces and given them a bit of a rollicking, which is always good to do once in a while. But we did get to go before we were locked down. We did all get to go in and empty our rooms and sort of see each other, and we did a bit of video, and we sang and we shared stories and said a few thanks to everybody. So we did get a tiny bit of closure, and you know what, as soon as all this craziness is over, I think Thriller will be one of the first shows out of the trap and back on the road.
Yeah, it's still a lot to cope with though. I mean, so you had professionally all of that, the book tour's gone, and then you've got the logistics of life and the fact that you're a dad. So how is it unfolding at home, and how are you managing that stuff?
It's been a ride, actually. I was due to fly to Canada, so I was going to miss the final Thriller show. So I was around and in the building, sort of saying my goodbyes weirdly, as all of this happened. So I was due to go and work on the story of Hollandosia Holland in Canada, and then come straight back to go into production for Heathers, which is due to tour. And we're kind of on this monthly rolling standby, casting Heathers and aiming to get it out as soon as possible. So there was a double drop, I guess, for me at the time. But as we went into lockdown, I just went into this kind of mindset of, do you know what? This is the gift of time that we complain about, we pray for, time with the family, time with the kids. It was beautiful weather. So I got in the garden and did that project, which would never have happened without this. Dug the whole thing up, redid it. Got all the jobs done in the house. We got into homeschooling, which for 2 weeks was really healthy. Little man loved having his dads as his teachers. But there was a point shortly after that 2 weeks where there was a realization that seemed to kick in, not only with my son, but with all of his pals, where they started to panic, and they started to understand this virus in their own little way a little bit more. And they started to wonder whether this was the norm, whether they would ever see their friends again, their school again, their teachers again. So we had a bit of a bumpy period where, a lot of fear kicked in. He was afraid of losing us, of not seeing his grandparents again, his aunties, his uncles. And that was quite scary to be a part of, because we went from this joyful, novel period of being his teachers and his friends and having all of this wonderful time together, to suddenly dealing with something that emotionally we were not ready for, and we're dealing with ourselves as well.
No doubt. And how old is he? How old's your son?
10. He turned 10 during lockdown, actually quite early. So his 10th birthday party was probably one of the first Zoom birthday parties.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's been really interesting to speak with people about parenthood in general, and then the experience is based on the age of their kids, right? Because I've got a 4-year-old this is completely normal now to him, you know. But my 6-year-old's probably slightly closer to where you are, with hold on a minute, and watching, starting to watch things and trying to get educated on what the virus is, and the 4-year-old waking up every morning for 2 months going, "Has the virus gone yet?" It's like, it's horrible.
When's coronavirus over? Like it's a holiday or a module at school.
So
but even with that, we're thankful. We've got nieces and nephews and students and various people around us that are part of that year 6 or GCSE, A level, leaving drama school. That community where this has been devastating for them. Watching them not being able to do their exams and then getting the results, and just one thing after another being quite a traumatic experience. And they're going to be this lost generation for years to come. Certainly part of history, but it's quite damaging, I think. From a social perspective as well as the education. I'm talking to a lot of drama school graduates at the moment, and they're terrified. That their whole life so far, and certainly the 3 years that they've just put into their training, is going to have been a waste of time and a waste of money, and they're going to have to rethink their careers because they're looking into an abyss of an industry. Whereas I think we are, those of us that are in the industry, we're a bit more tenacious. We've dealt with rejection and unemployment, and we're a bit more optimistic about the whole thing. These poor kids that haven't had a taste yet are terrified that there's nothing for them.
Yeah, that makes sense. But you've been working very hard and communicating with people, and in the industry, and specifically the younger ones. So, what's your perspective on what the other side looks like, and what are you seeing? Because we're sort of we're through the first big lockdown in the UK and all of that. What's emerging as well? What are you seeing on the industry? Because the headlines and maybe what we're reading on social media is showing part of the picture, but not getting the insight that you have, because you're communicating with these people across from the very top end of the established industry to the kids coming into it, young adults coming into it. So what are you seeing?
I think there's a lot of confusion. I think people that are working in the industry are confused as to why theatre spaces are different to pubs and restaurants, and why that can't be managed in a way that's not necessarily financially viable, but that shouldn't be the priority at the moment. I think getting people safely out there and getting things moving for us who work in the industry is really important. I went to a play in London. It was a musical called Fanny and Stella. And this company of people have very bravely put this musical on. It's been very cleverly socially distanced. The staging is very sort of cleverly socially distanced, and there's about 50 seats, and you sit in your bubbles and you wear your masks, and they bring you your drinks, and it's very, very well organised in terms of sort of military precision, getting people into the bar, into the toilet, and all the rest of it, and it works. And they have been extending their stay in this theatre. I think they've got into sort of quadruple extensions, because they're one of the only things that you can go out and see in terms of a theatre experience. And it just shows that there is a need, and there is a way to do this. And I think more people need to do these smaller productions where it is a test, and just really put their energy into making the new normal work. Because I think if everybody just sits back waiting for a vaccine or waiting for this whole thing to be over, which, let's face it, is not going to be for a while yet, we're all going to be sitting there unemployed for a long time. And I think somebody's got to do something.
What was it like as an experience as an audience member wearing a mask?
Do you know what? I've been quite cautious because I've been locked down with the family, having to stay indoors for a good 90% of the time during this past sort of 6 months or whatever it's been. So I'm really vigilant with the mask when I go out and all of that, and I hate it in the supermarket, especially in the weather. It's really claustrophobic, and it's not a nice experience. But I have to say, sitting there as an audience member watching this play, I completely forgot I was wearing one. That was the one thing we all sort of looked at each other and said, actually, that just, this whole thing just went away, because we were so engaged in what was going on the stage. It achieved, what theatre should achieve, which is take you on a journey and pull you out of yourself and make you forget what's going on in the real world. So it didn't affect our experience at all.
That's really nice to hear. I read a kind of review of a show at the Palladium that Beverly Knight did, which was a socially distanced experiment. I guess it was a gig, and you could see the picture of the audience, and it's very weird, sort of 2 or 3 people in masks and then a big gap, etc. And the whole thing was like, how did the show go? How did she feel the audience responded? And the answer was like, I don't think she knew. Because so from an audience perspective, it's cool, but from a performer's perspective, is it going to be weird to look out and not see people smiling or reacting? What are your thoughts on that stuff?
Yeah, well, I think this is the difference between these small sort of grassroots productions and then somewhere like the Palladium, where that is going to have a massive impact on the performer's experience, having a small portion of the audience out there. But we've got to start somewhere. And actually, I've got to say hats off to Andrew Lloyd Webber, because from the public perspective, he seems to be the only one that's out there doing something to try and find a solution. I think there's been a bit of sort of batten down the hatches approach from some people, which I found quite shocking. Whereas Andrew is out there, he's taking the test, and he's doing the whole vaccine trials and opening up his theatre to have a go, and see if something will work. And I think he'll continue to do that. But the reaction from the audience was brilliant. And going back to last night's performance, and I just think the support, there was a real sense of thanks from the audience to the people on stage and behind stage for just having a go and getting us out there.
Yeah, it's really nice that that's happened. And then you've been doing very impressive online coaching, being very conscious about supporting these new performers that are coming in. Tell me more about the work that you've been doing from home.
Well, going back to this lost generation, as I call it, it was one of the first thoughts that popped into my head, and it was seeing the children at my son's school, the year 6 leavers. The day the school closed, they were all wandering around the playground looking really lost, and you could almost hear the thoughts of, are we going to get to the end of the year? Are we going to go on our big school trip, have our disco, wear our leavers jumpers? All of these milestones that these kids go through that are all really important for them to complete the end of their journey at primary school, just sort of pulled from underneath them. And that got me thinking about the GCSE leavers, the A-level takers, and of course the drama school students. So I jumped on posting some online videos on my website straight away, and just picked series of topics and got people to write in and ask questions, and did all of that as a pre-recorded video. I did some interviews with various people, and the response was quite overwhelming. And I've now set up a coaching program where we do a combination of some of my choreographic repertoire, which has been really fun, digging into the vaults and pulling some of that stuff out and giving it a little polish and tweaking it and teaching that again. That's been really fun. But the real surprising thing has been sitting down and talking to these people, finding out their fears, their concerns. There are a lot of mental health issues, I think, not only because of COVID and lockdown, but just because of the industry as a whole. And the fears of what people are walking into. There are professionals out there that just second guess themselves all the time. And, there's a huge sort of compassion and support within performers themselves, way more than there was when I was auditioning, which was, it was a real bitch fest and a real competition. And the camaraderie didn't happen until you got in the show. That exists in the audition room and in the training area and the classes that these kids do. But the real battle that this generation have is with themselves. It's the sabotaging voice in their heads. So I've been working a bit on that and really want to continue that work, because I think it's really vital for these kids to have that as part of their training, and not just the pushing to be the best singer, dancer, actor, and present yourself in a certain way. There's got to be some self-care in there as well.
Yeah, so they're coming to you with those questions, and you're helping them with the benefit of experience. What's your reaction to performers that say, I'm wondering if this is all a complete waste? Like, what kinds of things are you saying to them?
I'm saying to them, use this period as, the gift of time. It's giving graduates particularly, but, all of them, it's giving them a real taste of what being an actor in the real world is about. It's a very lonely and a very individual process. These kids go from being in a class of 30 or plus, where they do all of their training together, they do their productions together. It's all very happy and pally and jolly. And then they come out and they're on their own and they're competing with those people that they were patting on the back not 5 minutes before. So this time is the time to prepare yourself, get yourself ready, work on your fitness, your repertoire. There's so much stuff online. I mean, the opportunities that these guys have got is just insane. And to not sort of sit back feeling sorry for themselves, but get out there and just capitalize on the 3 years training that they've already had, and create a 4th year of training for themselves, so that when they go into a meeting with an agent, they're ready. They know how to carry themselves. They know what they're selling. They know what they're good at, what they need to work on. And similarly with auditions, don't hide at the back or come in underprepared. Have all of that ready, so that there are no regrets.
Yeah, that's strong advice. Tell me about, you've been also taking your own advice. It seems you've been doing a lot of self-development and work. So how did you come to do that? And what is it you're doing?
Well, I mean, despite being what some people would say the busiest man in show business, because I don't like to just do one thing. Obviously, a lot of that is on pause. I don't like to say that it's disappeared or it's been cancelled. It's all been postponed, and it will happen again at some point. Like you say, I've sort of taken my own advice and used this gift of time. Now the garden's done and the spare room's done, and the child doesn't want to be homeschooled anymore. I've just jumped on a few courses actually. I started out by doing a marketing course just to enhance what I was doing with the coaching, which was really interesting. But since doing these lessons and holding these sessions where I mentor and talk to my students, I just want to get into that world a little bit more, and so I'm jumping on a bit of counselling and looking at educating myself a bit further with counselling, both with adults and with children and teens.
Wow. Okay, that's brilliant. I spoke with a therapist called Anna Simmons, who's a Brit. She's in Nottingham. She's done one of these episodes, so I'll certainly introduce you guys, because it'll be some interesting conversation to be had there.
That would be great.
Cool. Okay. I mean, tell me about anything that specifically impressed you. We spoke about the show that you saw. What else are you seeing that surprised you in a nice way since this has all happened?
I think, as I said, I think seeing Andrew Lloyd Webber getting out there and doing his thing,
yeah.
I found really, I think the smallest things are really healing. And that was one thing that came up in a discussion last night. It was the first time most of us have been out and sat round a table with other people other than our bubble or our family. And that was something that came up in a discussion, is that you are thankful for the smallest of things. So seeing Andrew out there, I took great heart with that, because there have been other things that I've looked at and found quite astonishingly sad. I've been very lucky that the people I work with are very optimistic and have kept me going. Bill Kenwright particularly, who is a producer that I work very closely with, he has not let this get him or his company down. We are working solidly on preparing so much to go out into production as soon as we can. And just having that there, it just helps sweeten the not knowing.
That's great to hear as well, I think, for people who might be listening to this, and anyone in your world that you share this chat with, is that the people at the top are actively working on things being produced again, rather than just shuttering everything, which is what it can seem to be for people who maybe aren't as steeped in showbiz as you are at this point.
Oh God, yeah, yeah, absolutely. And we've got to remember that one of the things, and it's a kind of beautiful thing in a sense, is that all of these guys, all of these people that the graduate looks up to, the big producer, we're all on the same level here, because this thing has happened to all of us. It's not chosen certain demographics or picked on one kind of person more than another. We're all in the same boat, and we're all looking at ways in which to come back, within the guidelines and making sure that we're safe and looking after ourselves and each other. But I think there's going to be a great deal of sympathy and compassion to come out of both sides of this, just talking about what I do. And that's definitely come through in my sort of mentor sessions, is that I'm no better than any of these kids that haven't done anything work-wise. We're all human beings trying to survive this pandemic. So let me help you feel better with the knowledge that I've got. And I look to the people sort of above me in terms of experience to make me feel better about what they're doing, and they've done that. And I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah, that is lovely. Now, we're talking, and I should have probably said this, we're talking on the 26th of August, and this is going to go live a week tomorrow. So it's going to go live on the 3rd of September. So with that in mind, could you tell me a little bit more about the online workshops and what you've got coming up, and where people can find you and how they can get involved in the work you're doing right now?
Yeah, it's an organic and evolving process. So I've been doing every Wednesday. I do a choreographic class, which is usually something from my repertoire. So we started out with something from Thriller. Last week we did a really fun Heather's workshop. Today we are doing something from Carrie, which is my personal favourite. And I've got Evie Hoskins, who played Carrie, joining as a guest speaker on the chat. So we'll do an hour of coaching and conversation following the choreographic class, and she's going to join us on that. So the topic today is self-tapes. We'll talk about self-tapes, but we'll also talk about Carrie and Evie's journey with what's been going on with COVID and lockdown. So I'm looking to take these classes into a studio, because a lot of guys are getting back into the studio. They've been craving just that kind of personal touch. And so a lot of studios have opened with social distancing. So I think once I get little one back to school, we'll be looking at doing some classes at Base Studios in Vauxhall, and continuing with the mentoring, either face-to-face or on Zoom, depending on where we go with that. So you can find all of that information on my website, which is www.garyloyd.me/online-coaching.
Great. Okay, well, Gary, thank you so much. It's been great to see you do stuff. You know, we've seen so much panic, but to see you actually, you know, using what you've got and using the assets that you've built up and sharing it with people is super inspiring, and has made me much less depressed about the state of showbiz. So thanks for doing it, and let's get this shared. And thanks for your time.
Thank you, Toby.
Thanks, mate. Boom. There you go.
All right.
Yeah. Do we need to add anything? Are you cool with that? I think that was really good.
Yeah, just the socials, but you could do that, could you?
Yeah. So what we'll do, what I found with what I found with podcast listening is that people they want one thing to do, and if you say go to a website or go to a social, or go, you know, they forget which one they're going to. So if you give them one place, then if they go to the website, they're going to find you and get on your list.
All the socials are on there.
Of course, all the socials are on there. So you give someone one choice, then they do it, and give them 5 if they're walking the dog or whatever, and it's a bit weird, then they can't remember it. So we'll do that. And of course, there are show notes that go with the podcast. So any traffic on our side that gets discovered, everything, all the links to all your socials are there. So if you email me over those links, then I'll put them in our blog as well. So it'll, people will be able to click on where they want to follow you, or if they want to go to your site. So we'll make sure that's good. So I'll send you an email and ask you for the various things. I've actually got a form that I usually ask people to upload things in, but because we did it the way we did it, I didn't do that. So so yeah, that's how we will solve that and make it easy for people to find you, which is the key.
Brilliant.
I'm going to press stop. This episode of Crisis Cast 2020 was produced by me in London and Kate Astrakhan in Michigan, with artwork by Ryan Field and sound design by Lee Turner. Crisis Cast 2020 is a production from Podcast Network Solutions, a full-service podcast production company who are ready to help you plan, record, produce and promote your message with podcasting. To find out more and grab your copy of Podstar if you're feeling pod curious, visit us at podcastnetworksolutions.com.